Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. So we're going to start introducing a competing theory of morality from Kant. So in this presentation, we'll talk about some cases of fairness. We'll talk about two attempts to test for fairness and consistency, the what if everyone did that test, and the golden rule. Then we'll talk about some of the problems with these tests. Then we're going to focus on Kant's principle of universalizability that tries to sort of capture what's good about those tests while avoiding their difficulties. We'll talk about what maxims are, and we'll talk about what universalizability is, and then we'll talk about how to apply this principle to specific cases. So consider some examples from your book. Imagine a person who reasons as follows. I should keep my money rather than pay it out in taxes because if I keep it, I'll be able to afford a wonderful vacation for myself and my family, and no one's going to suffer if I pocket the money since it's only a few $1,000s we're talking about, and there's no way that money could bring as much happiness in the government's hands as it could in mine. Now let's imagine that this person is right. He spends the money on his vacation, he and his family have a great time, but he's never caught. Or think about the person who cheats on their exams and gets away with it. Or the person who gleefully speeds down the emergency lane and escapes the traffic jam that everybody else is stuck in. Or imagine the person whose campaign of dirty tricks has gotten him securely into office. When we think about these examples, it seems as if the people in the previous cases are doing something immoral. And we do that but just by looking at the actions themselves, not by looking at the consequences. There's something about these actions that just doesn't seem right. Each person seems to be acting unfairly and sort of taking advantage of the system. In each case, people are making exceptions of themselves. Their success depends upon violating the rules that most other people are following. And that's a kind of inconsistency. And people are inconsistent to the extent that they treat similar cases differently. So the idea is the tax evader. They're sort of expecting other people to follow a rule that says pay your taxes, but they're sort of making an exception for themselves, say, oh, but I won't. Or yet again, similarly, the person using the emergency lane, they're saying, look, everybody else has to use this or stay out of the emergency lane when it's not an emergency, but I'll make an exception for me in this case because I'm going to get to my sort of work quicker that way. Now, what if we developed a moral theory that focused on acting justly, fairly, and showing integrity by applying principles consistently? So instead of a moral theory that focused on consequences and doing good, what would a moral theory that emphasized fairness and justice and consistency in our principles, what would that look like? Well, is there a test that we could use to determine when a person is acting consistently and treating other people fairly? There are actually two common tests that people often appeal to for determining morality that seem to be tests of fairness or consistency. There's the what if everyone did that test, and, well, how would you like it if I did that to you? The sort of golden rule. So let's look at these tests and see if they could give us a foundation for morality. So proposal one, think on this view, the what if everyone did that, it looks like the idea is if disastrous results would follow from everyone doing the same thing, then that action is immoral. That seems to be the idea. This focuses, notice, on the consequences not of an individual action, but on the consequences of everyone performing the same action. So this is a kind of consequentialism, this test. Now, this test seems to give the right results in a number of cases. So consider that emergency lane case. What if everybody used the emergency lane? Well, the idea is, well, then emergency vehicles couldn't get where they're trying to go, and that would be disastrous. Or the tax evader. What if nobody paid their taxes? Well, then we'd lose a whole lot of public goods, and that'd be really bad for society. Or imagine someone doesn't vote because they say, look, my vote doesn't really make a difference. The same person will get elected, especially in Alabama. I mean, someone's vote's probably not going to change. I can guess where the vote's going to go in Alabama. But if I stay home and I don't vote, well, I sort of save some time with my family. I save some money on gas. I don't have to stand in line. That all seems good. But someone might say, what if everyone did that, though? What if nobody voted? That would be disastrous. And so this test says, look, even if in this particular case, you get better results by using the emergency lane or not paying your taxes or not voting, it's still wrong because if everyone did that, disaster would result. But this test can't be the right test of morality because it fails in a number of other cases. Your book brings up the case of homosexuality. Someone might say, well, what if everybody only engaged in sort of homosexual sex? Well, then a disaster would result because nobody would reproduce and the human species would go extinct. People have given this kind of argument against homosexuality, but notice a problem here. That applies to celibacy too. If everybody chose not to reproduce, if everybody chose to remain celibate, then you'd get the same disaster of the human species would go extinct. But we don't think it's wrong for someone to choose to remain celibate. Thus, the idea is this reasoning is not good. This test can't be the right test of morality. Well, consider another proposal, the golden rule. On this view, the idea seems to be if you're treating others as you want to be treated, you're behaving morally. If you're treating others in ways you wouldn't want to be treated, you're behaving immorally. Yet again, another test of consistency or fairness, and it seems to get the right results in many cases, but it fails for other cases. Consider the masochist. Consider the person who wants to have physical pain caused to them. And now imagine that they start torturing another person. Well, they are treating others the way they want to be treated. So according to the golden rule, even if the other person doesn't want to be tortured or have that physical pain, since the masochist wants to be treated that way, it's okay for them to cause that physical pain to someone else. But that seems mistaken. Or consider the fanatic. Your book gives the example of the Nazi who is so committed to their cause that they would be willing to inflict this on themselves. So imagine the Nazi that's so committed to, so wants the world to be rid of Jews that they say if they found out that they themselves had Jewish heritage, they would walk themselves to the gas chamber. Imagine a Nazi that's so committed to those ideas that they would do that. Well, it looks as if they would treat themselves in exactly the same way, but nonetheless, obviously what they did was wrong. And so the golden rule is a bad test of morality. Now, Kant worried that the golden rule, as these cases sort of show, it makes morality subjective. It makes morality depend upon that individual person's desires. And desires are subjective and different from person to person. But morality, he thought, should be the same for everybody. So Kant also worried that the golden rule didn't give any moral guidance on how to treat ourselves. Nonetheless, Kant thought that the golden rule and this what if everyone did that test were still getting at some really important insight, and he wanted to come up with a principle that could capture that insight while avoiding their problems. He proposed what's called the principle of universalizability. He says an act is morally acceptable if and only if its maxim is universalizable. Now, in order to understand this, we need to understand its important terms. And the two that jump out here are maxim and universalizable. So to understand what the principle says and what the theory of morality that results from this is, we need to get clear on those terms. All right, so Kant thought that every action has a maxim, a principle we give to ourselves that guides or underlies our behavior. So a maxim is a person's intention to do something and their reason for doing it. So for instance, I'm going to post this video on YouTube and on Blackboard. Well, that's my intention. My intention is to post the video. My reason for doing it is so that students have the information necessary for doing well in this class and in order to meet my responsibility to students as an instructor. That's the maxim or principle that I'm working on. It's something like post videos in order to give information to students and meet my responsibilities as an instructor. Now, a maxim might be held consciously or unconsciously. So even though Kant thought that every action you take is guided by some principle that you sort of are using, you're not always consciously thinking about the principles. For Kant, as I said, morality depends upon the maxim or principle guiding your action rather than the consequences. Because of that, two people could perform the exact same action with exactly the same results, where one of those actions is morally right and one of them is morally wrong, because even though the action is the same and the consequences are the same, the maxim that's guiding their action might be different. So one person who maybe saves a sort of drowning child because it's the right thing to do, and another person might save that drowning child because they're hoping to get a reward. They have exactly this, they do the same thing and might have the same consequences, but you might think, well, one of them does something right, one of them does something wrong because the maxim underlying their action was different. Now, Kant had a deep reason for thinking that it's the maxim that matters to morality and not the consequences, and it has to do with issues about autonomy and control. Kant thought we can only be held morally responsible for things that are within our control. For instance, imagine I hit someone in the face and cause them pain. Can I be held morally responsible for that? Well, it might depend. Imagine I'm looking at them and I just think, you know what? They're bothering me and I just want them to stop talking. And so I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to punch them. And I do. It seems like, yeah, I did something morally wrong. But imagine instead that I have an epileptic seizure. And during that seizure, my sort of arm flails and hits this person in the face. You wouldn't hold me responsible for that, even though I did, like, the behavior was exactly the same. The idea seems to be there was no maxim underlying it, and that behavior was not in my control. The epileptic seizure, that's something that happened to me. It's not something I did that I was in control of. All right, similarly, Kant wants to say, look, you are able to decide the principles you live by. You are able to choose and control what maxims guide your actions. But you don't get to choose what the consequences of your actions are. And so we can't hold you responsible for those consequences, but we can hold you responsible for your reasoning or maxims. And this supports the intuition that people who have evil intentions but accidentally end up doing good are still behaving immorally, because what matters is their maxim. And the fact that they just got lucky and some good things came out of it, well, that's not anything that was in their control, so they don't deserve credit for it. Similarly, it supports the intuition that people with good intentions, but due to bad luck, their actions lead to bad results, they're still behaving morally, because those bad results, those were not within their control. They still had what was in their control, their maxim was still a good thing. All right, so morality, though, does depend upon that maxim being one of the good maxims. There are good maxims and bad maxims. So what distinguishes the moral maxims from the immoral ones? Well, according to Kant, the good maxims are the ones that we can rationally apply consistently. In other words, they are universalizable. So here's a test for determining whether or not a maxim is universalizable and thereby moral. First, formulate your maxim clearly. State what you intend to do and why you intend to do it. Then, imagine a world where everyone supports and acts on your maxim. So notice, I'm not saying imagine a world where everybody does the same action. I just say take the principle guiding the action and imagine everybody sort of supports and uses that principle to guide their actions. They're not always going to be doing the same action because that principle might not apply in the situation that they're in. So, I mean, take a principle that says, if you can save a life, then do it. Well, notice that's going to, even if a doctor and I both accept that and support that principle, that's going to apply to the doctor a lot more than it applies to me, because the doctor has medical knowledge such that they are in a position to save a life much more in many more situations than I am. All right, so the idea here is just that you adopt the principle and use it to guide your actions. That's what we're imagining everybody does. Then ask, in that world, could the goal of your action be achieved? If it can, the maxim is universalizable. You can apply it consistently throughout the world without undermining that action. If the answer is no, then the maxim is not universalizable. It's impossible for you to desire everybody to adopt that same principle, since doing so would undermine your own goals. So if your maxim is not universalizable, then you can't consistently desire that everybody adopt that maxim or reasoning, since doing so would be sort of self-undermining. Notice, this might sound like the what if everyone did that test, but there are some differences. The what if everyone did that test imagines a world where you apply your actions universally, Whereas the principle of universalizability imagines a world where you apply your maxims or principles universally. The what if everyone did that test focuses on the value of the consequences in that world. So does it lead to disaster, or does it sort of lead to sort of benefits for society? The principle of universalizability doesn't ask anything about the consequences, whether they're good or bad or disastrous. It just says, well, in that world where everybody adopts that sort of maxim, would you be able to achieve the goal of that action? Now let's consider some examples. So the tax cheat. The idea is, well, the tax cheat, well, what's their maxim? It seems to be, don't pay your taxes if it can benefit you. All right, let's imagine a world where everybody supports and acts on that maxim. Well, the idea is the entire tax system, I mean, it wouldn't even be possible in such a world. And so it wouldn't be possible for you to save your money in order to benefit yourself in such a world. You couldn't achieve the goal of that action, pay for that vacation with your saved money, because nobody, like the tax system just wouldn't be there. Or take the emergency lane case. The idea is, imagine a world where everybody adopts the maxim that says, use the emergency lane when it'll save you time. Well, in that world, there wouldn't be such a thing as an emergency lane. There would just be the normal lanes. And so you couldn't achieve the goal of your action, namely getting somewhere quicker, in a world where everybody I mean, that maxim just doesn't even make sense for everybody to sort of adopt. Or imagine the organ harvesting case we talked about last time. Imagine, so the doctor harvests these organs and saves the 5. Well, what maxim are they acting on? It looks like what they intend to do is take the organs from the healthy person. And they intend to do that in order, for the reason of saving 5 lives. Right. Imagine a world where everybody sort of adopted and acted on that maxim. Well, in that world, would the doctor still be able to achieve the goal of saving the 5 lives? The answer seems to be no, because imagine what that world would be like. I know that everyone, including doctors, have accepted this maxim that says, take a healthy person's organs if you can save more lives by doing so. If I know that doctors have adopted that maxim, you want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay, if I'm healthy, I'm staying the hell away from doctors because I don't want them to end up taking my organs. And so no healthy person would ever go to a doctor. They'd only go to a doctor under the most dire of situations. And so the doctor in that world, there wouldn't be a healthy person around for them to take the organs from, and so they wouldn't be able to achieve their goal of saving the 5 because nobody would trust doctors in that world. And so you cannot, the doctor would not be able to desire that everybody sort of adopt that maxim. All right, so next time we're going to look in a bit more detail at Kant's thinking on the connection between reason, rationality, and morality. Since, as we've seen, for Kant, morality is a lot more about the reasons, about acting sort of rationally, or about having rational principles, as opposed to looking at consequences. So we'll look at that in some more detail. Until then, bye-bye.